You're still screen sharing.
Come on, freak it out. Body freak, generate the foundation. Come on, freak it out. Come on, freak it out. Come on, freak it out.
Yeah, I'm down. So yeah, let's Is there content? But yeah, let me know when you shoot that request for Instagram live and all. Alright, let's start this thing up as soon as I hop in here, okay? Cool. Yo, what is good, dude? How are you? Yo, what's up, everyone on live? Just getting ready to do this interview with Aaron over at Lunar Lounge. We're getting started in just 1 minute here. What is up, A-Rab? How you guys doing? Sunday so far.
What's going on? What's going on? Okay, we are ready to go. We are live in the green room here with Masteria. Masteria, man, what's going on?
Oh, man, I am chilling. I'm quarantined, having a good time, just enjoying my Sunday, man. I'm happy to be here with you, though.
Yeah,
how are you
man,
doing?
I'm super excited. Yeah, excited to get this thing going, excited to get another interview going with you. I feel like you've been one of those people where we've kind of like interacted a lot on Facebook and like Instagram and all that stuff, and we haven't had the chance to like really connect and talk about things. So I'm really excited for this.
Totally, man. Totally. I love what you're doing out in New York. Everything I've heard about Lunar Lounge sounds awesome. I mean, the electronic music scene there is amazing. I used to go out to New York all the time, and yeah, so I respect what you're doing, and I'm glad you reached out, man. I'm stoked for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess let's get straight to it. Quarantine. We've all been going through some crazy stuff. It's been a weird time. I've asked people what they've been doing during quarantine, and I feel like that's such a generic question. So, off the bat, let me ask you this: what has been the most rewarding thing you've done during quarantine?
It's a good question. I would honestly say like the opportunity to connect with so many fans because so many people are home now, so a lot more people are on their devices. They're available to tune into these live things I've been trying to do, the live streams, things like that, and being able to connect with them around the music, around these live DJ sets, around some of the DJ like the producer feedback sessions I do every Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's been really rewarding. So those have definitely been my favorites so far. But I've loved how connected everyone's been, and it's really cool to see all the producers and artists in the community really push the creative envelope on what they're doing with their streams, how they're connecting with their audience. So, yeah.
Dude, absolutely. And first off, I've been watching you do your feedback sessions. It's hard to do because of my day job. You typically do them like right at the end of the day, but
Mhm.
I've been trying to make sure that I come in and tune and watch them after because they've been super, super helpful for
Hell yeah,
producers.
dude. Hell
Um,
yeah. Thank you for coming in and hanging out, dude. I have a blast doing them, and I'm glad they're helpful.
yeah. So, what kind of made you start doing that? I mean, I've heard some people say it benefits them, they learn from it. Some people really want to give back. Maybe it's all the above. Like, what kind of got you into doing that?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely both. I mean, I loved like the my favorite part about all this is the music and being able to really connect with a lot of these upcoming producers and hear what they're working on, hear the stuff they're creating is number one super inspiring for me, and I love hearing that stuff. But at the same time, came up, I'm still coming up, but I went to all sorts of feedback sessions to try and get my sound better, get my music as good as I wanted it to be. And so I'm thankful for that. I had the opportunity to like give back and do that and provide advice that other producers think is useful. So definitely a ton of benefits, but I have a blast doing it.
Yeah. Would you say when you're taking a look at these feedback sessions, would you say that there's a particular strength you have maybe more than other producers?
In what sense?
I don't know. Some people say they have really good drums. Maybe they have really, really strong low end. Maybe you're really, really good at sound design. Like, do you think there's any particular skill in production that you excel at?
I don't think there's one that I excel at more than others. I mean, yeah, maybe sound design is what a lot of people say they like my sound design, but I kind of view it as more of a holistic thing and don't really separate it into those different components. But the sound design and creating those like crazy fucking like glitch wobbles, I have a lot of fun doing that. So that's probably my favorite part of the production process.
Oh yeah, they're super fun, and a lot of the stuff that you make, I love that stuff that you do.
Oh,
Um,
Burke setting out the Womps, easy cake, hell yeah!
oh
Thank you to
yeah.
everyone tuning out on Instagram right
Oh,
now,
we got Honey and Badger music in here too.
all the way from Belgium. What's
Oh
up, guys?
yeah, those guys are making some good
Well,
stuff
it's
out there.
actually my mistake. It's one guy now.
Oh man, I didn't know that. What is
Yep, just
that?
just Alex. And then yeah, it's just one guy, and the other one he had a project before called Funky Fool that he's doing that full time now. But yeah, those guys are legends.
I didn't know that. Very cool. Um, well, actually, speaking of kind of making shifts over time, you and I talked a little bit about this right before we went live, but I really want to hear the full story. So you were telling me about before this, during your day or kind of before you were doing production full time, you had a day job, you made a shift. I'll just let you have at it. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so I have always hold on, let me just make a little comment in here on Instagram so people know what we're doing.
Oh yeah, I can pin one too.
Okay. Um, yeah, here, you want to pin a comment in there? So yeah, I like when I grew up, music has always been like one of my favorite things in the world, and it's always what I use as an escape. And like one of my favorite pastimes was always listening to music. And when I what was it in high school when Skrillex started coming out with some of that stuff, like some of the early dubstep stuff, I got really inspired to start making music. So I learned a little bit of it back then, but I like life kind of got in the way, and I had to figure out a way to. I had to go to college and get a full-time job, and went through that whole thing. And after doing that for a little while, there was just this burning urge inside of me to just really give this music thing a shot. Because it was like I would drive home from work, this startup I was just working so hard at, drive home every day at like, I'd get there like 9 a.m. and drive home at like 1 a.m. in the morning. And every night I was just picturing myself like DJing these songs I loved. And so I was like, fuck it, this is my one shot. So I just left the job I was with and just dove fully into production, learned as much as I could, and thankfully I've had a lot of amazing people help me along the way. And yeah, I've just been blessed, a lot of opportunities, and here we are today. Luckily, it's been working out a little bit, but yeah, it's always a grind, but it's when you love what you do, it makes it all worth it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a grind. So just to set the stage for some of the people listening, how old were you when that happened, and how old are you now?
I'm 27 now. Started doing this like I started doing this like when I was 25. I kind of left the full-time job and went into production, but I maybe started like fooling around with production when I was like I don't even know, like 18 maybe, but I've been producing seriously for like 3 years, maybe a little more.
Okay, cool. And you think that's really like what made the shift in your sound recently, or not shift in your sound, but like increase in your skill was like really just nailing down, focusing on that and not doing anything else?
Well, yeah, there's this saying that I really like. It's called "burn your boats," and what it is, we talk about these Greek armies. They'd sail to these different islands or countries to go to battle, and when they get there, they would burn their boats. So there was no retreat. At that point, you're all in. Either you fight or you die. And so that's how I feel like in order to be successful, in order to be the best you can be in anything, you have to just go all in. You can't have one foot out. You have to just have both feet in and commit all of your mental energy, all of your time to it as much as you can. And that's how you're going to get the best results. So that's what I did. And thankfully, yeah, I've had some decent results so far, but definitely just making it a number one priority helped a lot for me.
Damn, that's awesome. I love that. I mean, that's just something that I feel like has been a recurring theme on everyone on all the guests that I've talked to. And you're the third one. I've talked to Ekanova, and I've talked to Gabe DuPont, who
Steven, he's the man.
Dude, Steven, yeah. You actually have a track with him, which we should surely talk about at some point. But the two people that I've spoken to before you, and from my experience, is something that comes back a lot, I feel like, is that these people are diving headfirst in. They really don't stop what they're doing. They keep going, and they don't really look at any other opportunities besides what they have in front of them. So they're left with no other choice.
Yeah. You know why, racehorses, you know why they have those blinders on their eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't get distracted, and that's how you have to be when you're trying to kill it in an industry where there's so many talented people, dude. Like the kids on my streams, my promo inbox, it's ridiculous how talented these people are. So in order to cut through all this noise, all these releases on Spotify every day, you have to fucking just really get after it. And so that's what I would recommend to anyone trying to kind of come up in this space.
Hell yeah. I love to hear that. Quick housekeeping, Steven, I think I have some echo on your end. I don't know if it's coming out of the phone from Instagram Live or from the Skype. It might just be IG Live if you want to just turn the volume down on your phone.
Yep. All right. So I just switched audio. We should be good.
Okay, cool. But yeah, no, you gotta go full on. Okay, cool. So let's go back to a little bit of quarantine catch up. I want to hear more about what you've been doing, because I know that overall you're probably working your butt off and really grinding. Let's talk about maybe some of the simpler pleasures you return to. For me, I'm really back into video games, and living in New York, forgot how much I love being in the pool. and I'm looking outside my house right now, and I'm watching people being pulled on the back of a car on a skateboard right now. I don't think that's super safe, but that's happening. So in general, people are being outside more. I'm loving that. What are you finding yourself really enjoying about quarantine?
Well, definitely the opportunity to well, there's quite a bit. I've been home a lot more, which I've had more time to cook, which is definitely a passion of mine. I love trying different recipes, cooking all sorts of stuff, so that's been really fun. Um, yeah, just been able to take care. I mean, being like when you're kind of DJ touring, I wasn't touring like insane like some of my friends are, but when you are gone every weekend, you just don't have time to take care of a lot of the like some of the basic stuff, that
Yeah.
you kind of take for granted once you are traveling a lot. So really being able to take care of a lot of things I've been putting off has been great. But yeah, let's see. I think you might be getting some echo from your mic. Let's see.
It's possible. It's
Yeah,
definitely
so make sure your phone isn't getting any audio. 'Cause mine
I
is
have it on 0.
okay. Yeah, mine is on 0 too, so we should be
Or it's
good.
on. It only can go to as low as 1. Here, I turned down the
Yeah.
gain on my mic a little bit. Is that better?
I think so. Just my manager texted me. So yeah, we'll just keep going. This should be fine.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know though.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Cooking. What have you been cooking? Do you have any go tos?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading a message. Yes, well, I'm a huge fan of Mexican food. Anyone who follows my socials knows that I love tacos, I love burritos. So making a lot of those. I love making homemade guacamole, making some salsas here and there. But I also love what I like to call Mediterranean tacos. Oh, Burke, you knew it was coming. Yeah, Mediterranean tacos like falafel wraps. I love that because I'm a vegetarian. So been doing a bunch of that.
I didn't know you were vegetarian.
What was that?
I didn't know you were vegetarian.
Yep, yep. So I was vegan for a while, but just kind of vegetarian now.
Okay.
But well, I like to say plant-based because there's all these connotations and stuff like that. But yeah, aside from that, making some Thai peanut noodles is one of my favorites. Some curries, all sorts of stuff, man.
Yeah. Dope. I have been blessed to be able to be home with my parents, and my mom is making some of the best cooking I've had in so long, just because like I don't think I remembered how good home cooking was, but
Yeah.
it's so nice, man. I don't have to worry about it. It's awesome.
That's awesome, dude.
I actually
yeah.
think that a lot of people are I think this is going to change cooking industry, eating out industry, like for years. I think people have come back and realized how good cooking can be, and it's going to really hurt the restaurants.
Yeah, I bet, man. But I will say this. I really miss Mexican restaurants. I can't wait to be inside of one, eating chips and salsa with the homies again.
Yeah. I miss that. I kind of even miss like the dive bars where there's not really any like, it's not EDM, it's not a club, it's nothing, just like maybe on a Thursday you're just actually hanging out at a bar with people talking. That's I think what I miss the most, to be totally frank.
Yeah, I feel that, dude, 100%. We have a lot of dive bars out here in Detroit that I love.
Okay. So what is like the whole vibe in Detroit? I know you guys are like the king of house, I'm sure. Do you hold that title?
Do I or does Detroit? What do you mean?
Just Detroit. You, the club of Detroit people.
I don't know, man. I don't like to claim all that stuff, but what Detroit does have is a lot of like really rich history in electronic music. Like this is where techno kind of first started in like the mid 80s. A lot of the first techno sounds came out of here and spread across the country and across the world. And so that created this really kind of persistent underground music scene here that loves not only that style of music, but like has branched beyond that to all sorts of music here now. So like every weekend around Metro Detroit, well, we're not quarantined. There's like at least like 5 different electronic music shows at a minimum, probably more at smaller clubs. So all sorts of shows all the time, all sorts of really cool venues. It's a big stop for anyone who has a tour around the USA. So that's what is really cool about it. And we have Movement here, which is an electronic music festival, mostly techno and house. So that is definitely a point of pride for the city too.
I didn't realize that about techno. I knew that Detroit's like, I mean, for people that don't know this, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Detroit is pretty much considered the central hub for American house, right?
I don't know that. That could be true, but I mean, I know house music is big here, but especially lately, like especially since the guys like Chris Lake, Claude Von Stroke, Fisher, house music has really just become a huge thing all across the country.
Yeah.
My friends on the West Coast, East Coast, they all talk about all the house shows there. So it's probably pretty diversified now as to where the hot spots are.
Yeah, maybe hub wasn't the right word, but there is a lot of history. History might be the stronger word there. I feel like whenever I'm going into Splice, it's like when I look up house samples, it's like Detroit house, like old 70s house samples.
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is there's kind of like a Detroit house style, like some of the early house, because that's kind of where it started. A lot of it, like the early, like in Chicago too, like the same kind of thing with Chicago house. So I think that's where some of that comes from. But yeah, definitely a lot of house music here, and I'm yeah, very thankful to be part of the house music scene here.
Definitely. Actually, so speaking of that, Golf Clap, they are a pretty big name based out of Detroit. And I see you've had a bunch of collabs with them. I feel like you guys engage with each other on social media. It seems like you all are pretty tight. Yeah.
Totally.
Those
are the homies.
How did you all get to meet each other?
Well, we connected after I had some of my first releases on like Chami's label. We'd connected online. I kind of started hanging out with them, and yeah, hey, make sure your phone is down. I just got a message. You might be echoing again. So yeah, they're one of the biggest DJs in Detroit, especially in this lane. And so when we connected, I was super stoked because I'd seen them play a bunch before, and they'd seen them play at Movement, all this stuff. So since then, we've gotten to know each other. Found out we had a bunch in common, like the same kinds of music. Really vibed in the studio together. So we had a blast making some tracks over the past couple months. We had that released on Insomniac and Mousetrap, the Mystery Scene, and then we had Freak It Out. And yeah, it's really cool. And we're doing streams together all the time. So it's cool to be able to work with someone who's in your lane, in your area like that. And yeah, those guys are the legends.
Yeah, they really are. And I love what they've done with Country Club Disco. I feel like they have a really cool community brewing there, both on Facebook as well as just like in general, people who engage with like all their stuff.
Totally. Yeah, they're hustlers, and their Facebook group is super cool. For anyone who doesn't know what it is, Country Club Disco Community on Facebook. It's a really cool resource for fans of electronic music, producers, everyone.
Now, you even started one yourself. You got the Masteria Underground.
Yeah, Mysterious Underground is my group on Facebook, and it's basically a way for me to just kind of connect directly to a lot of my fans and tell them about some of the stuff I'm working on, or maybe get some of their feedback on things I might not post publicly on all my socials. So it's a little bit more private, intimate way for me to connect to my fans, or I don't even like calling them fans. I almost want to like call them friends or something, but people who fuck with my music, that's where I can connect with them and talk to them and get their feedback, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that seems to be a channel that people have really been using more. I mean, we've been using literally the green room. That's what we call our group, to people to engage more. And I feel like in a time like coronavirus where people are really struggling to stay connected physically, like this is so important to stay connected to your point, not even like fans, but just people that enjoy your art and want to engage with your content more, and they can't due to the issue of not having these shows and not being able to see you. So it's been really instrumental, and there's been some really cool stuff. I mean, Insomniac actually just did the whole. I think they're still going. They have one more day today, right?
For EDC, yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah,
some very awesome sets. I don't know if anyone in the chat sees Zoo's set with all those mannequins.
Oh, I missed that. What was that?
Oh, you'll have to. Words won't do it justice, but he just had a really well thought out, well branded set that was. It was super unique, and yeah, seeing what some of these artists are doing in quarantine from a creative, artistic standpoint is super inspiring and motivating, especially for me to kind of push the envelope. Oh, Burke saw it, yeah, it was cool. So definitely you should check it out after this.
Yeah, I definitely have to. I know I saw Wax Motifs, and I saw who was right before him or right after him. I saw a little bit of Mala. It's crazy because they have one of the cool things that you can do with these visuals is it's first off, people have totally figured out visuals online over the last couple of weeks, because when this thing first started, it was brutal. People were kind of doing like I don't want to say like big artists, but a lot of like newer people. By the time like now, everyone's figured out how to do the green screen. Everyone's figured out how to do these crazy visuals. And one of the cool things about these virtual festivals is that a lot of them are still taking place with legitimate light rigs, with legitimate visuals that you would see at a show. And so they get to work the camera angle. They get to work like Wax Motif had like a tunnel around his like the camera had lights in a circular pattern around it, so it was just this crazy tunnel effect when it would flash at you. So, and lots of cool stuff been going on for the live sets for sure.
Yeah, that's sick.
So you talked a little bit about getting signed on Chami's label, which is of course Confessions, one of the bigger labels that are out there. I think you got on there with your new EP too, right?
Yeah, so my underground EP just came out about 2 weeks ago now. And yeah, man, that was early on when I was producing music. That was one of the first big artists to really start kind of fucking with my sound and supporting my music and signing it to his label. I had my Darkness EP last year, and that was my first release with Confession. And since then, it's been amazing to be able to play a couple shows with Chami, have him supporting the music, and be willing to release it to his fans, because Confession fan base is not only huge, but they're all super engaged and super into this style of kind of underground house. So yeah, really thankful that Chami and the Confession team believes in the music, man.
What do you think is so? I mean, look, when you're an artist like Chami, when you're as big as Chami, you know, any label that you make is gonna perform well, at least, you know, from a digital engagement perspective. But Confession seems like one better than the rest. It seems like it's one above. What do you think separates Confession from these other labels?
It's a good question. I think one of the things that Confession does really well is, first of all, like their branding. But I think even above that is their music curation. Like their A&R Obi is the man, and he's really talented and good at what he does, and is able to get good music from a lot of really good established and also underground artists. And yeah, so the tracks they pick, I think, especially for someone like Chami, music has always kind of been at the forefront. So when they make that a priority, their releases just kind of stand out a little bit. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I like them, and I've really been listening a lot to the Sans Mercy stuff, which is, of course, Tony Romera and that whole crew. I feel like a lot of good stuff has come out of that label.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Tony Romera's killing it.
Do you have...
Yeah, Burke said professionalism, great fan base. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Chami's, yeah, he's super big and he's great with his fans. So it kind of creates an engaged record label fan base. So it kind of just a reinforcing loop.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have any favorites, as like not even necessarily as one that you'd want to be on or anything like that, but just like something that maybe a label that you've really enjoyed personally outside of the obvious ones?
I mean, I don't pay quite as much attention to labels as I used to. What interests me way more nowadays is like a music that is so different that some labels might not fuck with it. Like some of these promos I get from some of these underground artists, it's like things are wrong. Like the mix is wrong, like the clap is too loud, the kick is too loud, or something like, or it's like wrong, but it sounds so much more raw and unique. So that's one thing. That's one big thing I've been paying attention a lot to, is just like tracks that just sound different, feel different, kind of make you say like, okay, this is something else. And not only that, but like when they have branding and the artistic piece to match, that's what really excites me more than like a label branding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of like an up and coming artist that's like almost there, almost has it all to, like, in terms of the mixing and all that, can get it to click. You know, the ideas are there, but just a couple like months or maybe a year away from that.
Sure. Yeah, because the thing is about like music production, what I learned more and more is it's not about the best producers I know are not the best artists. You know, the ones who have the most technical knowledge, they're usually not the ones who are producing hit tracks and touring. Sometimes they end up kind of being teachers. But what's more important is the creativity and inspiration you bring into a project. more than your technical skills. You know, it's your ideas. I think that's what's really important.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. What do you think? And again, I'm just curious of your opinion here. What do you think separates someone at different levels for that? Like, what gives one person like more creativity? Is it just something they're born with? Do you think it's like a process? Do you think it comes from hard work?
Well, it's hard work. It's a skill. It's there's a lot of things you can. I mean, it's a lot of. It's a good question, but it's a very loaded question that I don't know if I'm qualified to answer, but I'll give you my perspective. I think it's about practice because laying down an idea for a track is a skill. Getting ideas down quickly is a skill. Being able to tell if your idea is good or not, worth finishing, that's a skill. So being able to really focus on the right skills, I think is super important. But also on top of that, I think living a creative and inspiring lifestyle is really important. Constantly finding ways to be inspired and not treating it like a job or like a something you have to do, because when you live an interesting life it comes out in your music. Like I've heard someone say your music is a reflection of yourself. So when you're doing all these crazy things, coming up with these awesome ideas and stuff and having fun and loving your life, it's going to come through in your music.
Yeah, 100%. You can't sit around. I know a lot of people that try to sit around, and it's really important to put in the hard work, but they grind so much that they don't actually give themselves room for inspiration. You have to come into the production chair inspired to do something. So whether that's riding a bike, whether that's working out, whether that's listening to new music, hanging out with friends, you have to have that creative energy, and that's a whole different skill set within its own to curate that and collect that and use it to your advantage.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
100%. So let's shift a little bit from the creative side and talk a little bit about more of the, I guess not that this isn't creative, but playing out. Less of the music production, more of the DJing. Before quarantine, you mentioned you were kind of traveling a bunch, maybe not like as crazy tours as some of these other artists, but you were certainly doing it a bunch. And from what I could see, you were as well. I mean, what were your plans with that moving forward? How are you thinking about your playing out following quarantine? What's on your mind with that end?
A lot of question marks for sure on my mind because I have absolutely no idea, dude. You know, you turn on the news and you flip between three channels and you hear three completely different ideas for how this will all resolve. So I have no idea, man. I hope soon. You know, I love being able to play music and connect with the people in the audience who love that style of music. That's one of my favorite parts about this and super rewarding. But yeah, I have no idea. I hope it's soon. And I hope we're able to get back to similar to the way things were in a safe way, in a safe, sustainable way. But I wish I knew, man.
Yeah. Do you take any stock into some of the shifts that have been happening from live sets in the form of these live streams? I mean, obviously they're great now. Do you think that they're going to last? I know we're all guessing. We're all playing a guessing game here, but if you had to play.
Sure. Yeah, I think they definitely will because, I mean, in the beginning, for sure, because not everyone is going to be ready to go to shows even when they do open. There's going to be a lot of paranoia about that sort of thing. So they're definitely going to exist then. But I think this has just kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to because a lot of these artists, they were playing shows, they were touring around the country, spending 5 hours on a flight there, 5 hours on a flight back, all these things to play a show for 500 people or 400 people, say. But then they can also just open their computer and do it from the living room to 1,000 people. So it's opened a lot of people's eyes to different and more unique ways to connect with their fans directly online rather than just having to go there physically, because the electronic music fan base is global, you know, so you can't go around the whole world in a month, but you can connect with everyone on the world and play a show to every country at the same time online, you know?
Yeah, one of the big problems I felt like with electronic music were that because it was global, there were a lot of markets that were simply underserved. They weren't getting the representations of the artists that they love. They didn't come play. They didn't have good venues.
Sure.
Whatever the problem was, the promoters didn't book them. I feel like this is giving managers and artists a perspective that, hey, you can address these markets in a different way than you previously thought. You can do this online engagement and it works.
Totally. Yeah. I didn't really think about that, but that's totally true. A lot of my friends and yeah, just sometimes we take it for granted being in the USA how many DJs come tour here, but some of these other countries that don't get so many DJ tours, I think it's been a really cool opportunity for them to see their favorite artists perform live.
Yeah, there's a bunch, and I've actually even been watching in the streams. Like people will come and like they'll shout out like the countries that they're from, and it's like, oh my god, like I wouldn't even have thought that electronic music fans are in that. What did he said? EDM in general has already been making the best of the situation. We're gonna see a lot of new names in this quarantine soon. Definitely, man. People have been grinding. People have been working their butts off, and the people that have been are the people that are able to come out of this stronger with their project and their brand are going to be the people that make it over the next couple of years.
For sure. I think what this has shown a lot of people is that like times are always going to be changing, and those who can adapt are really going to cut through. But if you can't adapt quickly to what's happening, everyone else is, and you're just kind of going to be left in the dust. So
I think it's and we got Fish Scale just joined us. I think it's going to be interesting. So obviously from the promoter perspective, I've had this conversation with some of my previous guests too. The promoter game is going to be really, really shaken up. I feel like so like for New York, I don't know what it's like in Detroit, and I'd actually be curious to hear what it's like in New York. We're pretty much relatively run by this one promoter, Made Event. They're the ones that do Electric Zoo, switching up the mood lighting.
Yeah, king of the zinger. Want some mood lighting? We'll get the fade going on here.
I saw that. I feel like for New York, we had this one promoter that pretty much ran it all. They did this really big festival, and they had all the relationships, and like they are, for whatever is going to happen to them, the vast majority of their income has shifted, and it's going to be forced to shift. It's going to really going to shake up the promoter scene in terms of who's booking these shows. I don't know if you have any relationships with people in Detroit or how you normally like play out there.
Yeah, I mean, I know a bunch of promoters all across the country, but that's another thing where it's, yeah, I mean, a lot of those, yeah, it's really tough for anyone in this industry because unless you're an insomniac, a big company that has some of these reserves just kind of help you coast through this stuff, it can be super difficult. So, yeah, wishing the best for all my promoter homies around the country, but I don't know what the future looks like.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, I feel like we could talk about coronavirus conjectures forever and ever and ever, and we'll never really get any closer. But I think we kind of touched a little bit on the beginning. Tell me about, we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know when these shows are going to open back up. But given the situation that you've currently been given, you're probably going to be working on music. You're going to be, I've seen you do a couple live streams. Do you and your team have anything specific, up your sleeves that you guys are, you don't need to give away anything too secret, but anything that you've been working on lately that's out of the ordinary?
For sure. I mean, we're always looking for new and creative ways to connect with fans because there's so much noise online. There's so many more producers on Twitter, on SoundCloud, and everything. So I think creativity is more important now than ever, and finding ways that make people actually stop and kind of pay attention and want to dive a little bit deeper is something we've been focusing on. And we have a lot of cool stuff planned for this year, especially kind of once we transition a little bit out of this phase of quarantine and everything. So definitely stay tuned for that. But we're really excited about everything we have coming up. Well,
speaking of that, we have a request in the chats for a Lunar Lounge Masteria show after all this. So
yes, dude. We talked about it before. I have not played New York yet, so I'd love to make it out there, man.
Trust me, we'll work on it. We have there's a couple things. We were literally probably a month or maybe like a month or two away from like actually sitting down and nailing it out. So I'm actually kind of bummed that this happened when it did.
We'll figure it out.
Maybe we can do a little virtual something. We'll keep the people tuned in.
Cool.
Let's talk a little bit more about your recent release, the EP On Confession. So we touched on it, but tell me a little bit where that came from. Any like particular, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Inspiration come from that EP, or any particular message behind it, or just music?
Well, there's a message in everything I release because it all kind of comes from the inspiration we talked about earlier. And growing up right around Detroit, there's so much what I talked about before, but there's this big underground music scene here. And that's what really hooked me on like electronic music early on, going to some of these like techno festivals, house festivals, and playing this kind of music. I just remember hearing this music and having no idea what it was, but just loving how it made me feel. And so that is really what kind of interests me from the sound perspective. But being from Detroit, there is there's so many underground kind of venues. There's so many of these buildings that were thriving in Detroit's prime that have now been left a little bit to decay or ruin. And a lot of these places will use those for venues for shows, like this one Russell Industrial Center in Detroit. And just the vibe of the music and the architecture and the feeling is really what made me want to create this kind of underground concept. And so that's kind of the inspiration I brought to the studio when I started making the EP. But I really love the dark, like fucking crazy basses, the deep vocals, all that stuff to really just make you feel like you're just in this crazy, dark, dystopian city. And then when the song drops, it's just like mayhem. You know, that's the shit I'm always picturing in my mind. That's shit I love. When I'm at a show, that's like what I thrive on. And that's the kind of experience I want to deliver to people who come to my shows. So that's what I'm always thinking about when I'm in the studio.
The deep and dark angsty drops.
Yes,
I
love that shit,
dude. Freak It Out is so good. I'm much more into like a feelsy house guy, kind of like an Odd Mob Ecanova. But like when I heard Freak It Out, I was like, damn, even I can get like behind this. You get a little aggressive, get in the gym.
Hell yeah, man, that's awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Well, we're coming up. I mean, we can do this as long as you want, but I've exhausted most of the questions I had prepared. Anything that you want to specifically talk about? Anything new? Anything crazy?
Not a ton, man. This has been a pleasure, but yeah, I mean, yeah, just working on a lot of new music that I'm really excited about. Working with my team on packaging them and building a kind of, I don't know. One thing I've been trying to do more and more is have it go beyond just the music, kind of creating a full package of an experience that offers listeners something new. So that's really what's been exciting for me and something we've been focusing on, and something I'm really excited to continue kind of unveiling this year. A lot of different kind of styles of music, but all with that same crazy dark vibe. But yeah, other than that, man, thank you to everyone who's been tuning in on Instagram Live, on YouTube. This has been super cool, and it's been great talking to you, man, learning about what you've been up to and everything. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, this has been super fun. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed actually having a full conversation with you. So let's keep this going. Let's stay in touch, and hopefully we can appease the people when this is all over and get you out in New York, though we already know that we are working on that.
It's going down, man. Can't wait.
All right, man. Well, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and send me over some new tunes. I could use some new ones.
Definitely, man. I will. That sounds good.
Catch
I'll talk to you later.